Hey everyone, it's That Math Magician, and on this video, I want to show and find out how we can find the slope if we know 2 points of a line. So let's zoom in on this graph where we can see that there are 2 different points here for us to look at. And again, I want to figure out what is the slope for those 2 points. Now there are a couple ways to do this. First things first is let's definitely figure out what these points are. This point here is at 1, 2, so that point there is at 1, 2, and this other point here is when x equals 6 and y equals 6, so that point is at 6, 6. And again, our goal is that we want to figure out what is our slope, what's our M term, what's the growth of our line. Now, there are a couple ways we can do this. First things first is, if you have the points already graphed, the best way to do this is just to draw in your slope triangle. If you draw in the slope triangle, then you can quickly see what your delta y is and what your delta x is, and then we can just figure it out by counting. So looking here, we see our delta y is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a positive 4 because left to right, it's going up, okay? Our delta x has a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we see here that our slope, which is always delta y over delta x, would just be 4 over 5. Now that's how you find the slope if you can graph the 2 points. Now let's say though that we couldn't graph the points. Maybe we don't have graph paper, or what if these values were so large that it was kind of impossible for us to graph it on a single sheet of paper. Here's another way that you could do this. Let's go ahead and work right underneath here. M equals, well, M still is always going to be delta y over delta x. And remember that delta just means change. And so when I'm talking about the change of y, what I'm really talking about is how is my y changing from 2 to 6? Okay, how is my point there changing? And what you can do to figure that out is to still have your fraction bar here, but then just to take your y values, right? I want to know the change in the y. We'll take your 2y values, 2 and 6. It actually doesn't really matter which way you put them, but you take those 2y values and we want to subtract them. Because if we can subtract them, it will tell us what our value is, what our change in y is. And let's do the same now with our x values. We see here that we have x values of 1 and of 6. So again, since I started with this 2 first, and I put the 2 first, let's now take this value of 1, put the 1 first, because delta x, I want to know the change in my x values. Well, I can do 1 minus 6. And now I can find out what my slope is. Well, 2 minus 6, that has a value of negative 4, and 1 minus 6 has a value of negative 5. Well, a negative over a negative, that just creates a positive, so I'm left with 4 over 5, which is the exact same slope that we had when we found it using graphing. Okay, so again, you could use both. Whatever way you want to use it is fine with me, but be sure to understand why it works. Okay, delta y just means the change in y. We can subtract the 2 numbers, but be careful. If you're using this point here first, right, this is our first y, our y1, we have to make sure that we put that first here, and then on the bottom, we have to make sure that we use our x1, or our first x. Then we can use and subtract the x2 and the y2. Now, some of you are thinking, well, I used this point first, right? I put the 2, I put the 1 first, then I subtracted those. Would this work if I used this point first? And I would say, let's see what happens. So I'm still going to use delta y over delta x, but this time, instead of writing 2 minus 6, I'm going to flip it and I'm going to use 6 minus 2. So let's write that out. I'm just flipping those to see if it matters which way we subtract it. Over here on the bottom, last time I did 1 minus 6. Well, this time I'm going to do 6 minus 1. Now, let's see. 6 minus 2, that gives you a value of 4. 6 minus 1, that gives you a value of 5. What do you know? Each time we did this, we ended up with the same exact slope, just using a different method. Okay, we're talking about the same 2 points. We should always end up with the same value. All right, guys, I hope this showed you a way of finding slope when you know 2 points. It's That Math Magician, and I'll see you on the next video.